6 years ago I, 28 male, got drunk at a friend's wedding and a woman, Anna 39F, whom I had rejected multiple times throughout the night, ended up forcing herself on me while I was nearly passed out. It was a whole mess and I fell into a deep depression. Things got worse when Anna showed up at my door after a few weeks saying she was pregnant. I begged her to have an abortion and leave me alone, but my dad and stepmother welcomed her into our house like nothing had happened. I never wanted to have kids, so when this happened I was clear with Anna that I didn't want anything to do with her, but I'd pay child support. I also cut contact with my dad for supporting her. After a few months, my son was born and Anna just disappeared. Nobody knew where she went or they didn't want to tell me. My dad also refused to help because I had cut him off, so I was on my own. To be honest, I fell in love with my baby right away. Seeing him fight to survive and then holding him in my arms was the happiest moment of my life. And while it was hard, I made it work, just the two of us. Then, 3 years ago I met my wife Claire, 26F. We dated for 1 year and have been married for 2. Even when we were just dating she was always perfect and she adored my son Archie, 5M now. She would play with him and read him stories and never said anything bad about him. She knew what had happened, but she was so loving and understanding, and I thought I had won the lottery by meeting her. The same happened when I met Claire's family. Everyone was so welcoming and they loved Archie so much. They offered to babysit him and even took him on vacation so Claire and I could have a weekend to ourselves. A few weeks ago I told Claire that I wanted to have a vasectomy so we could have a better sex life. She asked me if I was really sure, and when I said yes she got very quiet and changed the subject. No, even before we got married I was very clear that I didn't want any more children. At the time she said she was fine with that because we already had Archie. I knew she was upset, so I brought it up constantly until she finally admitted that she was hoping I'd changed my mind so we could have another child. Claire said she understood why I didn't want kids in the first place due to my childhood, but that I had become a perfect dad to Archie and I'd be a perfect dad for our second child too. She also said she had asked him if he wanted a little brother or sister and he had been very excited about it. I got upset when she said this and accused her of trying to manipulate my son, so we ended up having a big fight about it. The next day she apologized, but she still wanted me to think it over. She said she'd support me no matter what I decided, but that this was important to her. I told her that I was hurt because she had never mentioned this before and she just said that she was allowed to change her mind. Finally, she told me that we should talk with her parents so I could hear from them before making a decision. I admit I freaked out because I didn't want to discuss my sex life with my in-laws, but she assured me that she had just told them because they were close and she was looking for advice on how to bring it up to me. Anyway, last night we had dinner with her parents. We visit them every other Thursday since that's my Phil's day off, and it was a disaster. I explained how I'd never wanted kids until Archie was born and how even then he was the exception. For their part, they told me how much Claire wanted to have a child of her own and how this could be good for all of us. Where things got messy was when they said they wanted to have their first grandchild. I told them that Claire and I had been talking about her adopting Archie, and my mill said but he still wouldn't be my real grandson. They also said how they loved my son but they couldn't love him like a real family member because they were not related by blood. Finally, my wife said she was having second thoughts about the adoption because Archie already had a mom and she didn't think she'd be able to bond with him like a real mother, so that's also why she wanted to have a child of her own. I was devastated, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of my in-laws, so I just told them I'd think about it and to give me some time. So now I'm sitting at home thinking that I don't really know Claire. I didn't know she felt this way about my son and wondering if she had been pretending all this time. If we have another kid, I believe she and her family will just ignore Archie in favor of their real grandchild. And if we don't have another child, I fear she will just resent us or even become abusive towards my son. But at the same time, I don't want to throw away an otherwise perfect relationship and I really love Claire. Would I be the if I divorce my wife over this? I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this relationship can be saved. Any advice would also be welcome since I don't have anyone else I can talk to right now. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. I haven't been able to reply to everyone, but I'd like to answer some questions. 1. Did I talk to my wife about not having children before we got married? Yes, we had the discussion at least 3 times and she always mentioned she was okay with it. 2. Do I treat her like a nanny or there is money involved? No. I earn more than she does, but she still has a good job. She does work from home, but Archie is still in daycare because I want him to socialize with other children and I didn't want her work to be affected by having to look after a toddler all the time. 3. Will I get therapy? I've had a therapist for 4 years now. Archie is also in therapy. 4. Why didn't I have a vasectomy years ago? I got no excuses here. I'm just an idiot. 5. Why did I get married after only 1 year of dating? We were both in love and rushed into things. I'm also an idiot for this, apparently. 6. Did I get a DNA test? WTF? I didn't get a paternity test right away when he was born because I didn't care. I had already put my name on his birth certificate and after Anna left I just wanted to take care of him. I did eventually get a paternity test done. Spoiler alert, he is mine, but it was mostly for legal purposes since I wanted to take him out of the country for a job opportunity. 7. What happened to Anna? Who knows? I never heard from her after she left. My dad said he didn't know anything, and my friends from the wedding said they didn't know where she went either. 8. Did I report Anna? I tried. Unfortunately, I grew up in a country with some outdated ideas and I wasn't taken seriously by the police. Finally, I know that my in-laws were biased and that they would take Claire's side. I knew that when I agreed to have dinner with them, but I genuinely wanted to know if there was something Claire wasn't telling me. I was, and still am, confused and full of doubts about the whole kids thing, so I wanted to understand where she was coming from and what she was feeling. I just never imagined they felt the way they did about my son. Update 1. I also saw some people asking for an update, so here it is. Since Archie plays football every Saturday, I asked a friend of us, whose son is also on the team, if she could look after Archie for a while. I wanted to have this conversation with Claire without my son present in case we started arguing again, so we just headed home to Tall after the game ended. I know a lot of people said I should just divorce my wife both to protect my son and to let her move on, but, please don't be mad at me, when we sat down to talk I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage just yet. At that moment I was willing to compromise with Claire about a second child as long as we got couples therapy to address her and her family's feelings towards Archie. Even after the initial fight, when I said I wanted a vasectomy, I was mostly confused about what to do since I just wanted my family to be happy. Anyway, I started by asking her to explain why and when she had changed her mind. Claire started to apologize right away and she told me that she had always dreamed of having a big family. She said that she tried to convince herself that she could accept not having children because she really loved me and she also loved Archie. She admitted to lying when I had asked her about it because she didn't want to break up and she felt I was giving her an ultimatum of either choosing having kids or choosing me. I never intended it to be one, I just didn't think it was fair for any of us to be in a relationship if our goals didn't align. She also admitted that she had always been hoping I would change my mind once I saw what an excellent mom she was to Archie. What surprised me the most is that apparently my mill tried to convince her not to get married because it wasn't fair of her to expect me to change. Claire also told me it was Mill's idea to babysit Archie and do all those things together so my wife could bond with him and get used to the idea that he may end up being our only child. When I asked her why her mom had made the comments about blood being important, Claire said she had asked her parents to say that to convince me why it was important for her to have her own kids. I told her how hurt I had been by what they said and also when she told me she had changed her mind about the adoption. Claire said she was just scared that one day Archie would want to reconnect with his birth mother and that he wouldn't love her anymore. Apparently she had been reading a lot of stories from other step-parents who had been cast aside, especially when the birth parents showed up again or if there was a divorce involved. Her anxiety got worse around a year ago. According to Claire, she had always introduced herself as Archie's stepmom when she picked him up from the daycare because she didn't want to take Anna's place. I lost my patience and reminded her that Anna had abandoned us so there was no place to take. At this point we started arguing and going in circles. She accused me of not understanding how hard it is to be a step-parent and I told her she was fighting against windmills. After we calmed down a bit, she told me she got even more scared of being replaced when Archie started asking about his mom. She also felt guilty because she was sure he only asked because she kept correcting everyone about the whole mother/stepmother thing. She also said I made it worse because I didn't tell him the truth about Anna and tried to sugarcoat things by telling him that his mom felt guilty because he had been born very sick and she didn't want to see him suffer. Honestly, I just didn't know what to tell him because I didn't want him to feel sad about being abandoned. Claire accused me of still caring about Anna, WTF, and that's why I didn't want to paint her in a bad light. When I told her I just panicked and made up a lie in that moment, she said I should have just refused to answer and take Archie to a therapist. We did get him one the same month. That's when Claire said I should have tried to find Anna so we could have split custody and Archie could be with his real mom. I admit I lost it and started yelling at her that Anna was just a horrible person and that if it were up to me she'd never see Archie. She had SA'd me, she had tried to manipulate me when she got pregnant, she had abandoned my son right after he was born and, after all these years, she had never bothered to reach out. Claire yelled back saying I couldn't understand what a woman goes through and that maybe she left because of PPD and that I made it worse by just giving up and moving to another country where Anna couldn't find me. I said that wasn't the reason why we left and she knew it. I also told her how everyone who knew me back home had NING contact information and my address. So it's not like I was hiding. What finally broke me is that she said it was my fault that Anna left because I refused to step up and do the right thing by marrying Anna. She tried to apologize right away and said she didn't mean it, but I just told her to leave and that I wanted a divorce. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I just locked myself in Archie's room and started to cry like a baby until she left. She just packed some stuff and later sent me a text saying she'd be staying with her parents. The rest of the day was a blur. I went to pick up my son and briefly told NY friend I was getting a divorce. She and her wife hugged me and told me they would support us in any way they could, especially if I needed someone to look after Archie. I spent the rest of the day with him and we decided to have a pijamada, just the two of us. We ordered pizza, played with his new toys and watched some movies until he fell asleep. Since I can't sleep, I thought I'd write this update to vent or something. I feel like my life just imploded and I'm so heartbroken. I don't even know how Archie is gonna take it, so that's also gonna be hard. Now on to second story. Overheard my husband saying he doesn't consider my daughter his real child, leading to heartbreak and lasting family tension. I, F46, got pregnant with my daughter Sarah, F26, when I was in college. My parents and my then boyfriend's parents pushed us to marry, which we did. My late husband unfortunately passed away a week after our daughter's second birthday because of a heart complication that we did not even know he had. It was a very hard time for me and I went through a very bad depression. 4 years later, I met my now husband Robert, M46, on a blind date set up by a friend. He was one of my best friend's cousin. We hit it off and got married a year later. Even when we were dating, he was very hands-on with my daughter, and it did not take too long for my daughter call him Papa. Even until we got married and I got pregnant 2 years into the marriage and gave birth to twins, M17 and F17, he still acted like a father to Sarah. She was even included in my husband's family reunions, and the cousin group photoshoot that my in-laws organize every Christmas. Things took a bit of a turn when Sarah turned 18. She started calling him by his first name and both Robert and I were taken aback with the change of attitude she was displaying. I asked Robert what was that about, but he only shrugged, not knowing the reason too. I thought things would go back to normal, but she has been consistent in calling him by his first name, so I asked her if we could talk. Robert asked if he could join, which Sarah agreed. To make it short, my daughter overheard my husband talking about a Father's Day trip to his friend who owns an hostel. His friend asked him if he forgot to include Sarah since my husband only asked him to prepare 3 bedrooms. My husband replied that he planned this trip for his real children only. It wouldn't make sense if Sarah was in the trip since he wasn't her real father. This made Sarah feel betrayed and hurt because she saw him as her real dad even if she knew he was her stepdad. My husband tried to explain to her that though he loves her as a father, his love for the twins were different since they were his real children. I wanted to just shut him up because he was overusing the word real. But Sarah told us to leave her room. What made that day even more depressing was that this day was her last week with us before she leaves the country for college. Since then, every time she comes home, Sarah acts like nothing happened but continues to call Robert by his first name. Robert didn't want to add fuel to the fire and just tolerated it. And now, few years since then, my daughter announced her engagement to her longtime boyfriend. We were very happy for her as they have been dating since they were still college freshmen. 2 weeks before their wedding, we were wondering who would be walking Sarah down the aisle. I assumed it would be Robert since I thought we have moved past that incident, but no. My daughter scoffed at me when I told her about Robert walking her down the aisle. She said I thought it was obvious that Uncle Greg, my late husband's brother, would be the one to do that. Besides, I'm not his real daughter. It wouldn't make sense if he walked me down the aisle. I did not talk back, instead apologized for my ignorance and told her that I'll speak with Robert about it, since he also assumed he'd be the one to walk her down the aisle. When I told him what Sarah said, he was pissed. But I politely reminded him of the incident years ago, which made him even more upset. He said that it was long time ago and that Sarah should move on. I, who was offended for my daughter, told him that he shouldn't be upset since he doesn't see her as his real child anyway. He then got teary-eyed and told me to not speak to him. He still attended Sarah's wedding but looked visibly down. We still aren't on good terms and have been pretending in front of relatives. My daughter does not know about this and I want to keep it that way. But nevertheless, it's been a week since my daughter's wedding and Robert is still upset. He only talks to me about the twins and household stuff, but beyond that, he keeps everything to himself. I feel really bad and think he is acting this way because of me. So, without being said, Ida? Hi guys. I'm Sarah. This is not my Reddit account. It's my cousin's, biofather's side. I apologize for any grammar mistakes and spelling errors. My cousin sent me this post, while my husband and I were packing some stuff for our honeymoon earlier, and she thought it was my mom. My cousin is one of my go-to people, so she knows every single drama in my life. We are really tight. I was skeptical at first since I would never have thought of my mother using Reddit. It's just too random. Until I the overheard part of the post, it just brought back very good memories, hee. On top of that, I noticed that the fake names used are based on the first letter of our real names. It gave me the confirmation that this is my mom. I just want to say that I don't appreciate that some of you are calling my mom an a-hole. But I also don't think it's your fault since mom left a lot of details. After I left for college in the States, a lot of things happened. My cousin, the owner of this account, was the one filling me up with updates. So, mom and Robert had a huge fight regarding me. Plus, Robert always came home late and drunk from the cockpit. The twins, well, they were shielded from the drama because they were children. They kind of separated for like a year. My mom went to live with her parents. I was always in contact with mom, and she always asked for my whereabouts. You know, normal mom stuff. She also kind of filled me in about her separation from Robert. I actually felt guilty because I knew it was because of me. Their biggest fight was when Uncle Greg, I will be using the fake names mom used to not add confusion, confronted Robert about the incident because when I arrived at my university dorm, I called to him sobbing and told about everything. Uncle Greg is the typical cool single uncle and has always been protective of us cousins, so when he learned about it, he went on full Papa Bear mode for me. Robert was kind of mad that he was getting into our business. Mom told Robert that Uncle Greg, actually my cousins and I calls him Dada because he's really like our second parent, also has a say in this since he's family, but Robert wasn't happy about it. So yeah, that insinuated a big argument that almost led to Robert and Uncle Greg having a fist fight. They were already throwing unkind words to each other, and everyone was just emotional. When I learned about what happened, like I mentioned, I felt guilty and bad. So I sent Robert an email since he doesn't use Messenger. In the email, I told him that he should apologize to Mom and make things right for the twins. I did not receive any response from him, but eventually, he and Mom made up after a year. I was quite happy because I really didn't want to ruin my mom's marriage. I love my mom so much, and I'd do anything for her. You might be wondering why my mom did not initiate divorce. Well, first of all, divorce is still illegal in my country. Second, annulment is extremely expensive, and even if we were kind of well off, my mom's a physical therapist and a teacher at a university, while Robert used to be a public accountant up until I was 16 and owns a commercial space. Their pockets would have hurt, and annulment takes a lot of time to process. Today, I reached out to them, and I told them that I wanted a proper conversation because this has been long overdue. I think we all need some closure. I do want to note that I have moved on, but forgive? I don't think so. It pisses me off that Robert thinks I can just move on, forgive, and forget. It's hard to think that this was the man I used to call Papa. What's even more sad is that I still see him as my Papa. The pain I felt that day and when I started calling him by his first name. I even wanted to major in accountancy because of him. He was my role model. There were a lot of moments where I just wanted to go back to that day and pretend I did not hear anything and let it slide. Then maybe I'd still call him Papa. But I would be an idiot for thinking that because no matter what, the damage has already been done. So yeah, I am contemplating if I would update you guys on our talk tomorrow. I have texted my mom not to look over the comments here because some of you are just brutal. Sorry, I just don't want my mom to feel bad.
P.S. I want to add that both my mom and Robert paid for my college tuition.
I did not get any loans or anything. Student loans are uncommon in our country. Parents are always the ones paying. I'm actually grateful that Robert helped pay, but that still doesn't remove the pain. My husband has been really patient and supportive. Little trivia, we were classmates in high school. I was the talkative girl in class, social butterfly, and he was one of those goofballs, and we actually fought a lot back then, and we eventually developed feelings for each other throughout freshman year. We were surprised that we went to the university. We were both catching up on each other's lives, and yeah, the rest was history. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for your advice and comments. My daughter found and commented on my post, and we will be talking about this tomorrow. She had just messaged me earlier. I was feeling tired today and could not sleep, so I was able to write this. I also want to thank the people for calling me out. I know I'm not the best mother, but I try. But yes, I am an a-hole for tolerating him. I don't know what will happen in our talk tomorrow, but I do want everyone to have closure. I also want to add that my daughter and I do not have a strained relationship. She did not want me to walk down the aisle because then Robert would be pushing her to let him walk her too, since he thought we're a package. Update 1. Nonetheless, a lot of things happened. Robert was still doubling down and justifying his actions. We were running in circles and could not find any middle ground. This angered my mom, and then they had a heated argument that escalated to violence because Robert pushed my mom and said that he should not have married a woman with baggage. This boiled my blood, and I immediately slapped him. I pointed my fingers at him and warned him not to hurt Mom. He was about to push me, too, but the good thing was my husband was able to block him from me. Things got quite physical. My husband and Robert started punching each other. My twin brother was trying to stop them. Uncle Greg was also present and I had to pull them apart. I, while in a state of panic, called the police as my twin sister tried to comfort my mom. Fortunately, the neighbors heard the commotion and helped pull my husband from Robert. At the police station, Robert and my husband were still verbally degrading each other. The police asked a lot of questions, but to shorten what happened. 1. Robert admitted to pushing my mom harshly. My mom did not want to file a restraining order on him since it was the first time Robert had physically tried to harm her. We encouraged her to file, but she said that they would start processing an annulment instead and separate. 2. Robert admitted that he was still gambling in their savings from another bank account, which was supposed to be my siblings' college fund. They wanted to follow on my footsteps and study abroad, has been nearly emptied because of debt. My mom went ballistic and started cursing him because most of the money was from her. Furthermore, the twins don't want anything to do with their dad. He will be paying child support until they go to college. Though, he has to find a job because he is broke. He has been secretly leeching off my mom's hard-earned money for almost 2 years now. My mom filed an annulment 2 days later. We had to cancel our flight during that day because it was too much for me. We fortunately booked a ticket with the help of my husband's friend the day my mom filed and flew to our destination a week later. Our relatives on Robert's side, surprisingly, support my mom. Though Robert will be staying at his parents'. They are disappointed in him, according to my aunt, Robert's sister, but he was still their child. My mom understood them and minded her own business. My husband and I had a great honeymoon. We haven't heard much from Robert. The twins entered their last year of high school.